What I want to do is just get an idea of who we have in the audience tonight, so maybe that can help tailor some of the things that we talk about and just have a little bit of context. So if you're a founder of a business, can you raise your hand? Wow. That's awesome. Shopify brings the founders. That's
everybody,
cool.
Everybody get these people a drink.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out after work. Okay, so a lot of founders. If you are not a founder, but you're in marketing and have been for over 10 years on a marketing team, raise your hand. We see you. Okay, cool. And then if anybody is not a founder or tenured in marketing, but is interested in getting into marketing or interested in founding your own business, but are not a founder yet, if you could raise your hand. Okay, cool. And then none of the above that I just mentioned. Anybody else? Okay, so a lot of founders. Very cool. All right, well, we have a lot of marketing wisdom on the panel tonight, so hopefully, and a lot of comedic relief from Loris. So hopefully, the stuff that we share tonight can help those on the journey. As a founder, obviously, you may have a small team and you may be doing a lot of the marketing yourself and a lot of the road mapping yourself. So hopefully this will help. Let me test this out. Cool. Okay, so welcome to Office Hours. By the way, I'm going to be looking at this screen. We have some questions prepared and curated. So if you see me looking and squinting and trying to read up there, that's what I'm doing. So what is Office Hours? Office Hours is a recurring open dialogue event series where we bring founders and marketing executives and other people who are in the digital commerce space and who are familiar with Shopify, familiar with building companies together to talk about tactics and not talk in platitudes and all of this, but like people who are in the weeds on a daily basis, sharing what they do on a daily basis with you guys. So like I said, this is our third installment. I just wanted to thank the people from Shopify here who have coordinated all of this and put all this together. This is obviously a beautiful space, so we're very privileged to be here. Who am I? I'm Jackson Corey. I'm a co-founder of Darkroom and our chief creative officer. Darkroom is a full-service growth marketing agency. We work with a lot of fast-growing CPG brands, fashion brands, furniture brands, and most of our clients are Shopify brands and are built on Shopify. We also have an investment portfolio called Dark Matter, where we've invested in the following companies as well. So, we're very founder centric. We love founders. We work with them every day. And that's a little bit about us. The title of tonight's Office Hours is How to Scale Your Business in 2024. So pretty broad topic, but we're going to be really talking about the tactics, the strategies, and the week-to-week work that these folks do. And I'm going to try to tap into that and pull it out. I'm not going to interject too much. We'll just keep it flowing. But if I hear something interesting, I might double click on it. Okay, cool. So you can read this pretty well. So we've got, like I said, a lot of marketing wisdom in these chairs. We've got Kate, Loris, and Orli. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves for themselves. But just to give a little brief background, Kate is the senior director of marketing at Glowbar. Actually, Glowbar and Heyday are very similar businesses, which is kind of interesting. Loris is the oddball out. But Kate was previously at Flamingo, which is a brand that's owned by Harry's, and then moved to 30 Madison, but throughout was a marketing consultant. So a lot of experience in marketing and is now one of three leading the marketing team at Glowbar. So, a lot is on her plate. Loris is the director and general manager of Save the Duck, overseeing U.S. market expansion. Save the Duck is an outerwear company that is prominent in Italy and Europe, and so he's tasked with growing the market share in the U.S. Previously at Gemmy, if you're familiar with that brand, and was a director at Puma. And then Orli is chief marketing officer at Heyday, which is a growing company. I think 38 35 locations. All three of these folks have to manage both online digital e-commerce marketing programs as well as brick and mortar. So they have that kind of breadth, which is really cool. Orli was previously at Verizon, and then before that was at 360i, which was a big agency that was bought by Dentsu. So anyway, I just say all that to say, like, we can trust what they have to say, and let's get into it. So Kate, I want to start with you. If you can give us a few things. How did you get into the marketing space? What does Glowbar do? If you could just explain a little bit of that context. And then, what are you most excited about for this year leading your marketing team?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate. The first question in that I think is, what is Glowbar? I'm guessing the women in the audience might have an idea, the men may not. You're nodding your head. Glowbar is a skincare services company. We offer 30-minute expert facials, and we have 9 locations in the New York region today. We are doubling in studio count this year, which is really exciting, and launching into new markets with that as well. So how I got into marketing, I'll take you way back. My first job out of college actually was at the New York Post on the advertising sales team. And I had known that that is not what I wanted to do long term, but it got me to New York where I wanted to be after college, which was really exciting. And I figured it would be really great to have this big name like the Post on my resume. So I ended up spending, I think, about 6 years in the media world, but pretty quickly pivoted to much smaller startups in that space. So if anyone here is familiar with Well and Good, maybe fitness, I see, okay. I was the 7th hire there at a time when we were still working out of one of the founders' old apartments, which is pretty funny to think about. And that was actually my first introduction into marketing. We were partnering with some really cool brands like Peloton and Adidas, and so I was helping to shape how those brands were reaching Well and Good's audience, whether that be through an event series, a content series, influencer partnerships, et cetera, et cetera. I would say after a bit of time, kind of started to feel like it's cool that I'm getting to do this, but I don't really know what impact this is having on the brands that I'm getting to work with, and so started to hunger for, I would say, a deeper and broader understanding of what marketing actually looked like at a brand. That is what ultimately led me into the consumer marketing space, which I can talk a little bit more about later. And in terms of what I'm excited for marketing-wise for Glowbar in 2024, the team has been effectively one person up until a month ago, which is crazy. And so I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit we have to optimize. And I'm just excited to put real strategy behind a lot of the different efforts across all of our marketing channels that we're investing in this year.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's a really interesting perspective that you have working on such a small team. I think with a lot of founders in the audience, they may be wondering, how to be effective within a small team, working with limited human resources to actually have an impact. So maybe we can draw that out a little bit throughout the night. Loris, same questions to you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me good? Yes. So for Save the Dog, let's start there. Who is familiar with Save the Dog? No one. Awesome. We are an Italian outerwear brand. We are a brand with a commitment. The name is Save It All. We are 100% animal free, and mostly we are a sustainable brand with the goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030. We are a B Corp, so we do a lot of good, but not just sell awesome product. How I got into marketing. So I'm a computer science major, but I quickly decided, I'm from Milan, I'm from the capital of fashion. I quickly decided what I want to do. What I didn't want to do was coding. I found it boring, and probably I made a mistake back then. Probably I could have made a lot more money, but and work less. But I decided that that's not what I want to do. And I started working in the fashion industry. I started working in sales. And then from there, I also decided that I don't have the stamina to be a salesman. It's great, it's fantastic. I want to do other things. And the life brought me to experience marketing. The life brought me to experience merchandising, operation, working in a store. I did everything I could do to really learn every aspect of the business. And that's what brought me, and I work in big company. I work in Fortune 500. I work for Puma. I work for ASICS. I work in very small company like I'm Jamie. And I actually decided that I like small company. And I like the startup. I like that roll up your sleeve and, motivate your team and build things is what I'm cut for. Right? If I get another call from a Fortune 500, I probably say, no, I'm going to end up my career at Save the Duck. That brought me, all the experience brought me in the position where I'm now managing, and I have managed for the last 10 years teams. I have managed marketing teams, I manage retail teams, I manage e-commerce team, really give me the opportunity to be the dumbest guy in the room and to hire people that can lead, that can bring innovation, they can bring idea to the table, and they can help us to grow and bring Save the Duck at the moment to the next step.
I think we're all builders here. I think that's what Shopify's ethos is, so resonate with that. By the way, Save the Duck has a beautiful showroom on Broadway, so look it up. I highly recommend going there. The product is beautiful. Last but not least, we have Orli. Take it away, same question.
Sure. So I share your experience of not having studied marketing. I didn't think I wanted to go into marketing. I studied semiotics and narrative theory, very esoteric. I thought I was going to be a filmmaker or a writer. I wanted to write screenplays and spent a number of years post-college not doing that, not doing really anything related to any kind of career trajectory. I lived in Prague and taught English, and it was wonderful. And then ended up landing back here in New York, where I grew up, in advertising, as I started as a copywriter in ad agencies, actually, and very quickly pivoted to content strategy. Spent the next dozen years or so working in ad agencies. You mentioned I worked at most of that time at 360i, which was a wonderful agency. In that time, I was extremely fortunate to contribute to the growth of all sorts of incredible brands: Coca-Cola, Oreo, HBO, Pernod Ricard, so Absolute, Target, you name it. I mean, really, it was a dream. We worked on all sorts of incredible creative work that I'm sure you all have seen and experienced in your lives over the years. After a while, I started to feel frustrated about how little I was able to impact the actual businesses that I was touching. A lot of really fun work, impactful in sort of culture, but I was really craving to get to sort of fly closer to the sun of a business. And so I left the agency world and pivoted to work on the brand side. You mentioned I spent a little bit of time at Verizon, which was a wonderful experience, but really felt like I was craving a smaller brand experience. And so I have been at Heyday since September, so still pretty new. Heyday is a competitor to Glowbar. So
that's not why we said
we're not. So we do very, very similar things. We are a facial studio. We have over 30 locations across the country. We started here in New York. We have 5 locations in New York, a number of locations in LA, and then over the last 2 years or so, we've expanded pretty rapidly. You can find us all across the country with more locations opening soon. And what am I excited about in 2024? I am excited to sort of usher in a new era of growth for the brand. We've expanded rapidly in terms of our footprint. And I think now is the time for us to really solidify what our brand means. Skincare has seen an incredible evolution over the past couple of years. We've been around for almost 8 years, and we've provided an incredible service. And now I think the sort of world is catching up to us in terms of people's interest in facials as a core component skincare. And I'm excited about what that means for the future of Heyday.
Awesome. Okay, on that note, I want to dive right into the meat and bones because this first question is kind of like on that point. So let's discuss priorities. It's now February, but still beginning of the year. So I'm sure you guys have just gone through, annual planning and road mapping and figuring out what the targets are for the year. If you could explain a little bit about how you went about that with your teams, like where do you start? How do you, finalize, align, et cetera? And then how are you thinking about balancing efficiency, which, we could call profitability, with top line growth, which is kind of like a prevalent theme of the time, even though it kind of always is a through line. It's very prevalent on LinkedIn and Twitter right now. So I'll actually just start with you, Orli. And so how did you do that? And when did you start doing this exercise, by the way?
Well, I just joined Heyday in September. So definitely spent a couple of months kind of getting my feet wet and figuring out, where all the bodies are buried and what's going on within the company and all of that stuff. But, we started it pretty much immediately. You're planning for 2024 in like October, September, October. If you don't have your plans set by the end of the year, I'm just kidding. We did not have our plans set by the end of the year. We're still
start talking about it.
We are still doing it.
Yeah.
And you're constantly revisiting it and figuring out, where you are, where you plan to be, where you are now. How do you adjust based on the realities on the ground? But yeah, I think that it's a partnership between operations, finance, and marketing, depending on your business, sales, and all three sort of partners need to come together and develop goals that are attainable, and also going to drive the business. And it's really a constant process. We meet every single week. We're constantly reviewing the state of the business and adjusting our plans accordingly. I think to the question of balancing efficiency with top line growth, I think it's sort of like a false dichotomy in my mind. People spend a lot of time thinking about CAC, right? What is the cost of us acquiring X customer? And not enough time talking about what is the cost of us retaining the customer, or like how can we create the best, in our case, client experience that our lifetime value with each client is maximized. You can have a $50 CAC, but if your lifetime value is only $100, like it's not going to be efficient. So I think you can only optimize your CAC so much. For us, really, the priority is making sure that our product is really solid, our communications with our existing clients are really solid, that they are recommending us to their friends, and we have all the mechanisms in place for them to do so. So optimizing the experience and the entire ecosystem around the experience is really the path to profitability more than the top line growth is. Obviously you do have to keep bringing people in, but the right kind of people who are going to stay with you for the long haul.
Yeah.
So I think I don't always think it's a useful conversation to have around that balance.
And if I could just bolt this on, and this will apply to you guys as well, because as founders, there are a lot of metrics that you can monitor on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that could seem like, infinite amount. But really, it at the end of the day, it can be quite simple. So I just wanted to bolt on a daily or weekly basis, what are those North Star metrics that you're looking at? I'm posing this to you as well.
Yeah, I'll just keep talking.
But then I want you guys to answer this too, to make sure that you're on track.
Yeah, well, obviously it's appointments. For us, we're, our 95% of our revenue is people coming in and booking and, having facial appointments in our shops. And we have a lot of shops. So you've got to look at like, what is the appointment count, and then breaking that down, like how many of those are members, how many of those are returning clients, what is the average order value? And so those are the metrics that we're looking at. It's like pretty simple.
Yep.
In a
Put some
way.
cohorting and AOV.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm jealous of these two marketers because they work in the hottest industry, which is the beauty industry at the moment. So super jealous of you. On the other hand, we work on a fiscal year that ends March 31st. So we are really actually just started our planning for 2024. And for us planning, it's really looking at what are not just the growth, but also what are the priorities of the brand in terms of channel. What differentiates us from their business, we also have a solid wholesale part of it. Retail is pretty new to us. We only have 7 stores global, only 1 in the States, but we have a growth plan that is pretty significant on that side. So there's really a channel, diversification, and where we're going to invest the money, in which partner in wholesale are we going to bet on the best partner for us to grow. Where are we going to expand stores, and that dictate geographically are we going to invest more of our marketing money. And obviously there is always the e-commerce business, part of our business that it's changing so much right now that we don't know what the fuck we're going to do. Sorry. Right now, really, we're throwing everything in the air and try to figure it out how to do it. We're trying to steal a page of what these women are doing and the beauty industry doing, because they're doing it quite well. We don't know if it works, if it's going to work for a brand like ours. And in terms of growth and profitability, I totally agree with that, the lifetime value. Very difficult for us. We are a brand that we're trying to actually sell you less. We're a brand that we are trying, because of our commitment to become carbon neutral. I always say, what is the only product that doesn't pollute? The one that is not made, right? Even if we do recycle, we do recyclable, we're doing amazing things in terms of product evolution to limit the carbon footprint. There is always a carbon footprint. So it's a little bit opposite. It's a little bit absurd for us to say, hey, buy more, but we want to be carbon neutral. And so it is probably, consumer lifetime value. It is something that we look at it, but it's how we bring more customer is right now to know about what we do and not just appreciate the product because they walk into an Ostrom and they see a beautiful jacket at the right price point with a funny duck on the sleeve, but really understand what's behind. Really understand that you're buying not just in a product, you're buying into a brand that is doing something amazing for the planet, for the future, and all of that.
So you just told us that you had swimwear, you have outerwear, you have sweaters and things like that.
Yeah.
How do you balance thinking about product expansion? So like you're taking maybe more of the share of a person's wardrobe, one person, and lifetime value that way versus capturing more of your total addressable market.
That is exactly what we're trying to do. So if we looking at that person and appreciate that jacket that they bought for us, how do we adding more items that they can layer in their wardrobe instead of trying to sell them another jacket, right? Instead to.
But the problem with that is that it's investment heavy, right? Versus
it's development investment heavy in terms of time, in terms of supply chain. We think about this too. Again, going back to sustainability, we work with a very small pool of factory because we need to make sure them too do everything correct. I mean, not just in terms of minimum wage, not just in terms of working hour, everything. Do they filter the water? What they do with the leftover scrap material that are on the floor? What they, it's so every time that we want to do swimwear because we thought that was a cool thing to do and we thought that our customer will appreciate that. Sourcing a factory takes 18 months to make sure that factory is up to standard and they do what they preach. They're not just showing you a beautiful factory and then everything else is produced in a sister factory a few kilometers away and a few miles away. Sorry, kilometers. Sometimes I get that confused.
Yeah. Thank you. Before we move on to Kate, I definitely want to hear your answer. I think it's just interesting if you're very early stage to just think about once you reach a certain level, whether that's 7-8 figure hump in revenue, like what happens then? Because you run into these challenges and it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of capital to start to expand. So I think it's an interesting problem.
Can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
There is a lot of times that we are leaving money on the table. We say no to an amazing opportunity that will only bring money to the shareholder, will not bring an advancement to our pursuit of becoming a sustainable brand. So that, and that is all part of the planning of next year that we are doing. It is very important for us.
Awesome. I'm going to skip the last question because I'm literally looking at the exact same metrics every day that Orli's looking at because the businesses are so similar. What I'll also say is that I'm very new to Glowbar. I'm on my 5th week right now. So I have largely missed the 2024 planning process. It's not done yet. I was basically handed company objectives and OKRs for the year. Does everybody here know what OKRs are? Stands for objectives and key results. It's essentially a template to follow for goal setting. So we have our company level OKRs for the year that basically lays out what do we have to do across all these different areas of the business to hit our financial targets. The process we're going through right now is taking those objectives and key results and translating those into department level OKRs. So I'm saying from a marketing perspective, how do I help us achieve X in revenue or reduce member churn by X%. We're also looking at things like customer experience, which I think Orli mentioned too, tracking NPS, whether that's NPS around total experience in the studio or specific to the esthetician that our client saw for her facial. So that's something we're working through right now. And then largely on the topic of balancing efficiency with top line growth, I would say something that really encouraged me actually to join Glowbar in the first place is because I think the business was built in such a sustainable and really smart way. A lot of that is due to scrappiness on the team. We can be quite cheap about things and I think it's actually quite a positive thing, but everyone on the marketing team is doing effectively everything. There is nothing that somebody's going to say no to or feels like they're too good for. And so that means that my social coordinator and I are responding to Instagram DMs all weekend long and on weeknights. It means that I'm copywriting our emails and building them in Photoshop. It means that our marketing manager is filming and producing and editing all of our Instagram ad content herself. So I think that scrappiness built into the culture of the company has been really essential, and I hope that we can maintain that as the company grows and scales too.
Awesome. Cool. I know I'm going to start with Loris on this one, just because you guys are a little bit newer at your companies, but maybe you can apply what you've learned from your past companies into what you're doing in Heyday and Glowbar respectively. So what marketing initiatives have driven the most impact for you in the past 2 years? And how are you doubling down on those in 24? And maybe another thing to add here is there a platform, a channel, a strategy that you feel like is underutilized right now by a lot of brands that you want to capitalize on? Maybe not.
So I can tell you what has worked in the last 2 years. As I said before, we don't know what's going to work in the next year and beyond that. We're trying to figure that out now. So obviously, like everyone, influencer has been key. Partnering with the right influencer has been key for us. And we took what we call a circular approach. Instead of picking, the Kim Kardashian of the situation and trying to spread the message from a big influencer out to the rest of the world, we chose tons of smaller influencers on the out circle and tried to spread in the message that way. That was for us was very, one, cost efficient. Two, was unfortunately very labor for our team because again, you have deal with hundreds of personality. You have to deal with hundreds of people. You tell them, don't do that. Sure, they do that. You have to deal with a lot of adversity and a lot of logistic to make that happen. But for us, it was very successful, right? It was very successful to create that sense of community. Everyone talks about community. What community is in reality is, it's still really to be discovered. And that in connection to the old digital, the old Facebook media, Meta.
Did you find that you could just seed product for and you didn't have to pay for a post? You could just send them the product for the most part?
So if we're looking at 100 posts that we do in a week, 80 of them are just a gifted product. And 20 is people that we pay and people that we have a longer relationship.
Got it.
Something that we are really trying to figure out for 2024 is now what we're doubling down, what we are changing. And we think is the time to go back to brand ambassadors. It's the time to go back in the street. It's the time to go back with experience and activation that are not digital, that are real and people can experience it. What that means for us, we have few ideas, but nothing concrete yet.
Yeah, I will 100% echo those sentiments around obviously, paid digital has been a boon to all kinds of businesses for a long time, and it does continue to be sort of a baseline necessary evil in a way. However, I think that it's been a little bit of a red herring over the past decade for a lot of businesses, and I agree that we are really doubling down our investment on community building, advocacy, ambassadorship in all of its forms, and experiential offline marketing. We're thinking about out of home and experiences and just ways for people to engage with our brand in more meaningful ways. We've seen, I think, we grew a lot over the past couple of years. We expanded our footprint and we have an incredible in-shop experience. I think that with that expansion, we put a lot of money into paid digital and some of it panned out. I think a lot of it was probably wasted. There's always that, famous saying, right? 50% of my marketing works. I just don't know what 50%. And that is 100% true. It's an art. You're constantly pulling the levers up and down. And for 2024, we're definitely thinking more about some of the things that you said as well.
Cool. Kate, maybe, are you applying anything? Oh, Loris.
May I add something for all of you? Very important right now is to take your consumer and make them your biggest and brand advocate. How you've realized why you have a VIP, the people that come every week to do the facial, and have them talk to their community and make them build your brand for you.
There's literally no substitute for word of mouth.
Yeah, 100%. In addition to everything these two guys just said, really hyper-local community marketing efforts have been super important for Glowbar, given that we are largely a brick and mortar business. And so that means that with every new studio opening, we are activating within a certain radius around that location. So we are creating lists of 100 plus influencers in that area and conducting outreach. We are contacting like-minded brand partners and local businesses to host pop-ups and conduct mini facials or bring the business owners into studios, so they're spreading word of mouth for us. We are ourselves going around and putting hundreds of flyers up, which is actually what Glowbar did for their very first studio opening in Tribeca in 2019 with grab-and-go promo codes. So a lot of those things have been really effective and are also very cost-effective, which is great. And so we'll have to figure out how to test and scale that as we open many new studios this year and also into new markets. But it's been something that's really successful, and I imagine we will be doubling down on in 2024.
Cool. Do you have any contrarian perspectives of the marketing ecosystem in 2024?
Yeah, so I don't know how contrarian this actually is, and it's advice maybe I wish I took when I was earlier in my career starting in consumer marketing. But I would argue, like, don't spend money on marketing, especially growth marketing, until you're really good at acquiring your customers organically. I hear people in the audience saying yes and nodding. Organic social is really amazing for this right now. Community building is really amazing for this. I'll share a very quick story. I have a very good friend who I met at my second job out of college at Well and Good, actually, who knew that she wanted to start a brand in the home decor space. She started posting on TikTok about 2 years ago, lifestyle content, wellness content, home decor content, and over that span of 2 years, like, learned pretty quickly what type of content was resonating, what was getting views, what was getting engagement. She built an audience of 30,000 followers on TikTok, 20,000 on Instagram, launched her store actually on Shopify about 6 months ago. It wasn't an overnight success because she still had to learn how does she turn this audience into actually paying customers for her product. But it's been growing very, very quickly and, like, is basically exploding now. She's been featured in Architectural Digest and Who What Wear, hasn't spent a single dollar on marketing, on press, on influencers, on Facebook ads. So it's really impressive, and I think there's a lesson there to be taken for all types of brands, both big and small.
It's a great perspective. Lars?
Can you fast square? You're fat square. So before spending any money, really figure out what is that you want to tell to your consumer. What is your brand voice? What is your aesthetic? And, when you have that figured out, then try different things without changing that message, without being inauthentic. Thank you for being my helper over here. Being inauthentic. Just don't follow the trend just because, that is the coolest song to be on, to have it as a background or on TikTok. If that doesn't resonate with what your brand stands for, don't try to be just follow the others. Find your voice, your aesthetic, your way of telling your story that is important for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have that much to add. I agree with everything you guys said. I think the point about finding your story and what your brand stands for and articulating that in a really clear and simple and concise way is often overlooked. People have a logo, people might have like a mission or like, here are my products and my products are really great, but what is the story that you want people to believe about your brand? What do you want to be telling? It takes work. It takes a lot of deliberation. You have to be really intentional. I started actually by saying I studied semiotics and narrative theory and, did not do so with the intention of using that for marketing or advertising, but it has been probably the single best thing I could have done as an entry point into this industry because I really understand and believe in the importance of really clear and compelling storytelling. These things don't just happen. Narratives are built intentionally and over time. You read a great book, that's what it's doing, and that is what your brand should be doing as well. And then, only then, can you really have true brand advocates, build community, because you have a real story to tell.
Yeah, you have to be patient in that pursuit. The time is just the inevitable element. I want to pause and just say that we're going to have a Q&A at the end of this for about like 15 minutes. So you can think of a question and we'll be calling on people. So I just wanted to pause and just say that so you can prepare. We have a bunch of questions. I might skip over a few just so that we can hit what I think is best and have enough time. This one I definitely want to touch on. So, creating a content engine and a steady stream of content, to your points about brand, and even when it comes to performance marketing, it's a grind. I don't think anyone is going to lie about that. So how do your teams plan and produce content for the quarter, and how do you balance this very on brand, or you could even say like higher fidelity creative with more direct response performance marketing creative, and we could just go down the line.
I don't know that there really has to be much of a difference. I don't think about it that way, at least. I think the highly produced content can be great at performance, and some of the more sort of lo-fi, kind of off-the-cuff, socially native kind of content can be great at brand building. So we really do a mix of both. We're not quite as small and scrappy as Glowbar. We have a few more folks on the team, but we're still a pretty new and fresh brand with limited budgets, and so we don't have millions of dollars to make highly produced ads all the time. So we do really, really, really intentional about our content shoots, and ensure that when we're investing in a photo or a video shoot, we're doing so with like a really solid plan in mind, and that content has to last us all year or for 2 or 3 years. And so we do it in a way that can be cut, in a million different ways and respliced. We make sure that it's not like sort of on trend, so to speak, because those trends are going to go out of style. So when we do invest in photo shoots or video shoots, we do it with that kind of intentionality. And then we're also taking lo-fi content on those shoots to be used, in a more sort of regular, off-the-cuff kind of way.
Are you planning that out quarterly? I'm just curious for myself. Quarterly, monthly, annually? Those bigger shoots.
The bigger shoots, probably like twice a year at most.
Okay.
At most, maybe even once a year, depending. But then we're constantly doing like little shoots here and there, so like a lot scrappier.
But then you'll extend the content of the bigger shoots for a long tail.
A very long time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Loris, I'm sure it's different for you being in fashion, maybe. So speak to that.
Yeah, we have a seasonal business. We have a spring, summer, and a fall, winter collection. So we tend to produce a brand content for every new season. That is very much inspired by what the design team, the product team have come up with as the theme of the collection. Whatever they decide to be, mountaineering, escaping from the city, whatever those, I don't know where they get those ideas. And so we tend to hire creative agency to help us really set the tone on what is the season, how we tell the seasonal story, while we continue to talk about all the other great stuff that I said about the brand. But then, on a monthly basis, we set aside budget for monthly, quick, very easy production that we do internally, that we do, one of the nice things that we did by working with all those influencers, tons of them are amazing creators. They might not have a great following, right? But working with them directly, we are able to quickly use their skill to produce high quality content that we can use in social, that we can use in email, that we can use in many other forms. So really being flexible, being seasonally relevant, having the opportunity monthly to create things because, it's October has been very warm. So let's not push the heavy parka. And then January comes and all of a sudden we got all the snow. So let's move quickly and push that product as more season appropriate. We have to leave that flexibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Kate, do you have a similar approach to Orli, or do you approach things differently from a content perspective?
So we don't plan out content very far in advance, at least not right now. We don't change out our paid ad creative very frequently. Our advertising budgets are not huge, and so what's working for us, we just kind of keep it running and then refresh as needed. We are building out our first ever year-long social media strategy right now, which is very exciting for a number of reasons. Part of that work will be new content pillars by platform. So we're looking at Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn for the year. And so once we have that done, we also have a high-level marketing calendar for the first half of the year. It should be pretty easy for a social coordinator to take the content pillars, take the high-level marketing calendar, and build out the organic social calendar for the upcoming month, say. But that said, I think we still try to leave a lot of space in that to hop on trending content coming from TikTok, memes, something like what came out of the Grammys the other night. And I will also say that in January, we've been playing it very fast and loose because we just haven't had a plan in place. And it's been a lot of fun for the team and it's actually been working extremely well. Our engagement on Instagram is up over 100% compared to December without a plan in place. So I say that to all of you who are starting your own brands and companies, you don't need a content calendar. Like, you can just have fun with it. I would just make sure that you're posting consistently too.
Do you have one person that's hopping on those meme trends? And
we have one person that's creating the content. There's 3 of us in marketing. There's a number of like young people on the team in general. So an idea could come from anywhere at the company. And it typically ends up being a collaboration, but it's a very fun process for everyone, which has been great.
that's awesome. Okay, cool. So you each manage your own brick and mortar stores as well as e-commerce, even though it may be, not a huge part of the pie. How do you think about offline versus online marketing initiatives? And I'll just start with you, Kate.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a ton to probably add to this topic. I think you might have more here because the large majority of our business today is services done in brick and mortar. Product sales, we also sell product in stores and also online. That is mainly for convenience of our members who maybe have run out of one of their favorite skincare products, need to restock, and they're not coming back in studio or they've moved away. So that's essentially like the rationale behind why that exists today. And again, that could change in the future. I think when it comes to analyzing marketing initiatives, we just try to be really clear with ourselves about why we're doing something before we go and do it, so we can actually measure performance against that goal when we wrap up. So we're constantly asking ourselves, like, what's the purpose of this? Is it to make sure members are using their monthly voucher for their facials and come in studio? Is it to bring in net new clients to get their first facial with Glowbar? Is it to convert first-time clients to membership after their first appointment, et cetera, et cetera? So trying to be really intentional with your goal up front has been helpful.
Cool. That's an interesting question. So we really are focusing on dividing chord of where we acquire the customer. And we're really treating them differently depending if it's a customer that we acquire online or if it's a customer that we acquire at our store. Because we know that their expectation of their first introduction on the brand is completely different. Think about if you walk into a store, somebody's there, somebody's telling you the story of the brand. You come up with just a better understanding of what we do and how we do it and why we do it. Online, there is less of that education. Now there are some amazing tools that you can start incorporating, videos and other things like that to really tell that story, but it's never as personal. So while we're concentrating really on the e-commerce consumer to constantly remind them the story of the brand, we are concentrating on the consumer that we are acquiring in store to really bring them back and to experience the store again, and to experience that atmosphere and that enjoyment that the store does. We are also really focusing on a lot of activation that are on the street, a lot of activation that are not digital, because we really want to build that trust in our store, build the trust on the brick and mortar more than we do online. I don't know if that is of help to anyone, maybe a little confusing, but how I think about offline versus online performances. Right now we're thinking a lot more about offline. Right now we're really focused on figuring out what offline means. And and offline is not just around our store. Offline is what can we do into an ashram, right? What can we do in partnership with any of our wholesale to create the momentum, to create that incredible experience that people will talk about, people will remember, people will say, oh, that was cool, that was new, that was and amazing things. I learned something, and really so those are moments that will stay with the consumer. Those are moments that the consumer will talk about it. Again, going back to what I said before, making your consumer your first brand advocate. These are all things that are very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. 90% of our revenue comes from people. 95% comes from people getting facials in the store location. So the brick and mortar experience is probably the most important asset that we have as our brand for our business. That said, a huge number of people, we're not an e-commerce brand. We do sell products online as well. But a huge number of people are booking their appointments online. So there is a very significant digital component to the in-store experience. And so that user experience, so to speak, online on our website and all of the different touch points where people are engaging with our brand digitally is really, really critical. We have to tell our brand story in a compelling way digitally, in addition to the brick. It's to me, it's one holistic experience, and we try to think about it on like a continuum, so to speak, right? We have the client is really at the center in the client experience, and we know that client is experiencing our brand both in real life and with, when she sits down in the chair, with her conversations with the esthetician and her experience with the service that she's getting. And then when she goes online to book her next appointment or explore more, we have an app as well. And so that's a really immersive client experience. So for our most deeply engaged members and clients. And so it really is sort of a holistic brand story that we're telling across all of those touch points.
There's so much that we could tap into there, but in the interest of time, I'm going to keep it moving, and maybe someone will ask questions about that. I'm going to skip the seasonality question, Loris. You're off the hook. Okay, great. If you could give yourself one piece of advice as someone getting started in marketing, what would it be and why? And maybe this will be the last question. We'll open it up for Q&A, and then if there's not enough answers, they have a few more questions too. So, Orli, why don't you kick this one off?
Just one.
Just one piece of advice.
So like probably most people in this room, I kind of grew up maybe not like when I was a kid, but like in my professional career, in my career in marketing and advertising, I grew up in digital. Have spent, my formative years in this industry in social and search and digital overall. And I did not really understand innately the importance of boots on the ground, pavement pounding, real life experiences, word of mouth, community building until, quite late in my career. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Be at this event, haha. But, really the advice that I would give is there is no substitute for a face-to-face interaction with your customer, understanding who that person is, getting the feedback from them, and then sort of passing that experience along from person to person to person. Absolutely no substitute for it.
100% agree. Networking is the most important thing that you do. But my piece of advice is do everything in your company. Understand how operation works. Understand what sales needs. Understand what retail team needs. Understand how finance thinks. Because only if you have all of this, you can make a plan that actually works. Because you can draw a fantastic plan, but that operation say, I can get that jacket to that influencer in time. I can make that happen. And so if you know all of it, you'll really be able to make a plan that will be 100% successful.
100% agree with the advice from these two. What I wish I knew when I was starting out in consumer marketing, so a bit of background, my first role directly at a brand was at a very, very small beverage brand, and I was the first full-time hire and the only person in marketing there. I had no idea what I was doing because I was previously in media and ad sales and integrated marketing in that world, so I had no idea what I was doing. I spent a lot of time networking, talking to old coworkers, friends, acquaintances that also worked in marketing at a brand directly. But what I found is that not all of the advice or conversations I had there were actually that helpful in terms of helping me make decisions and unblock myself from challenges that I was facing. So as an example, I had talked to the head of influencer marketing at a very large $100 million brand that has a team underneath her. What she's doing for in the influencer marketing and what she might advise for me to do for influencer marketing is going to be very different than what I can actually do with no support and no budget with a brand that has zero awareness. So all of that to say, because I feel like some of you here might relate to that, like you're trying to find people to take advice from, like look for people, whether informal or informal, like mentorship from somebody who has experience not only doing what you're doing, but ideally at a company of a similar size and stage and also a similar industry, and just be thoughtful about the advice you're seeking from people and where they're coming from versus where you sit.
That's great advice. Excellent from all three of you. So kind of like, don't take every perspective, count it as equal. Filter it, because every company is a little bit different. Every company's at a different stage, et cetera. Be more collaborative and integrated with each department at the company. That's huge, especially marketing, finance, supply chain. Like these things work together. You need to consider one another. And then prioritize boots on the ground, community, offline stuff that doesn't necessarily scale, but is super important for growing the brand. Excellent pieces of advice. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for some AMA and Q&A, and I'll just start. Your hand was up real fast, so I'm going to go with Dave. Perfect. So I'm actually going to repeat all of the questions, by the way. This is one that I skipped over. I'm so glad you asked this. How do you forecast and plan for seasonality in your business? What are you doing during those off-season times?
We were joking. I said we spend less. We try to make more money. It is in reality what we're trying to do. We're trying to maximize the investment more. So when we're looking at CAC, we're trying to improve and our CAC to be even higher than what we do in the winter season when our product is more relevant. But the other thing that we're really doing is expand our product portfolio. Right, so introducing new introducing categories that are less seasonal, and trying to really push those categories to tell the story of the brand. You know, we launched swimwear. It's all 100% made with recycled ghost net. Everybody knows what ghost nets are, right? All those fishing nets that are abandoned in the ocean because they're no longer useful. But they are an answer for all the sea animals. So we're trying to collect and make swimwear using those. So we're trying always to tell the story, introducing new product. That's what we really do to create an overall seasonal business and it focus the investment on the new product category. Right, we're not talking about jacket in April. We're talking about swimwear. We're talking about athleisure. We're talking about other initiatives that we're doing, still with a strong messaging around the brand. Yeah. Thank you.
So just to repeat the question, so I think how do you analyze the performance of maybe a macro influencer that has a lot of followers versus a micro influencer who has less followers? How do you analyze like the impressions that they're getting versus actual conversions, revenue in the door? So how would you tackle that? How does it make money? Yeah.
I'm also taking this question as like, how does your brand's social platforms, how do you take those people and convert them into customers too? So this also might be a bit of a controversial take. I don't see Instagram or TikTok, for example, as a conversion driving platform. I see it potentially, yes, awareness generating, but maybe leads driving if you can bring those people into your ecosystem in a really thoughtful way. So I think number one, like, are people engaging with your content? Are they commenting? Are they liking? Like, that is a great first sign. We're trying to be a little bit less directly promotional on Instagram because it's not resonating with people. I think the place to do that typically ends up being in stories where you can link them to your website. So I think trying something like collecting emails through social media, something that feels a little bit like lighter touch and warmer than sending them directly to a product link to purchase, tends to be a good idea. There's also things that you can do when you start to spend on growth marketing. You can also boost posts on Instagram to reach more people or a similar audience and try to generate leads from that. So that's where I would start, but I don't see Instagram or TikTok as themselves as conversion driving platforms.
Loris, I want to hear your perspective on this too. That's a great perspective. Just because you talked about the circle approach in the beginning, so you've had a lot of experience seeding product. How would you?
It feels like a word of mouth similar channel to me, and not so much like an email where you're like, click this link and buy this product.
Yeah.
That is exactly correct. I mean, we are using Instagram right now, especially with the fact it's less and less measurable.
Yeah.
Everything is like, okay, you're looking at a meta platform, and is those data, is that CAC, is that ROS believable or not? We don't know. They don't know either. Yeah. Right? So we are really using Instagram to build a community, to spread the message, to build the brand. We are using more as a top funnel approach and not anymore as a lower funnel because it's just very difficult. I think you have the same.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too is, in general, I don't think enough emphasis is placed on community management and customer service. Instagram is a really great place, one of the very few places where you have the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody that's a potential customer of your brand. And so make sure that whoever is doing that is integrated closely with your marketing team. They're representing your brand voice. You can talk to them in a way that feels human and personal, but also answers a question they have, and potentially that person will come in as a customer one day. So I think that's really important too.
Well done. Okay, all the way in the back with the hat. So if I just repeat that just for the people who are watching this afterward. So how do you prevent burnout as you scale? You're hiring more people, you're in a place of leadership. You don't necessarily want to expect everyone to be working nights, weekends, et cetera, in a very scrappy environment. And then also as a leader, when do you decide to actually scale your team up versus keeping it super lean and small?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So thank you. I have no formal process around this today, and I'm sure that will change in the future. I just stay really close to the team, and every week in our weekly one-on-ones, we're talking about this exact thing. I'm asking them, like, how is your bandwidth feeling? How are Instagram DMs feeling in terms of inbound quantity that you're getting? Like, how much time are you spending on the weekends? How much time are you spending on weeknights? Can I help you? Like, just because I'm in a leadership position does not mean that I'm above responding to people on Instagram DMs or responding to customer emails. And so I think just making sure you have that open communication with your team, I found can go a really long way and has been extremely helpful. And as far as figuring out when to hire out, it's not to say that we do everything in-house. We typically try to bring somebody in first on a freelance basis if we need help somewhere that we cannot tackle internally. So a good example of this, we're hiring out a freelancer for SEO support right now. I don't have experience there. It can be quite technical. No one on my team has experience there. So we're turning to external support. I could spend a lot of money to hire somebody full-time. We don't need that yet. I haven't even proved out SEO as being something that's impactful for the business. And so we're going to start small and then see how that builds.
I love that approach. Can Orli answer this as well? You have a bit of a bigger team. So how do you structure those responsibilities?
Yeah, I think, we're fortunate to be at a different stage in our business. Our marketing team is, if you count the CX team, which sits under marketing, we're about 12 or 13 people. So we do have a structure where, it's not all hands on deck in the same kind of way. Everyone has their roles and responsibilities and but it's still very, very collaborative with each other. We help each other out with anything that needs to get done. I agree with the idea of bringing in freelance support when you need to scale up, or it's very, very flexible, allows you to scale up, scale down, get in that sort of tactical support in specific subject matter areas that your team may not, have endemically. But I really think it's a matter of sizing up where your business is at the moment. If you have a huge amount of consumer interest and like too many people DMing you, and then you need to hire somebody to address that and to engage with those people in order to grow your business. I think sometimes staying too small and too scrappy will end up hindering your ability to grow because you just don't have the resources to capture the opportunity that's out there. And so I think it's, to some extent, like an opportunity cost. And you have to evaluate that and where the position that your business is in at that moment.
That's super true. When people are getting stretched super thin for too long, then you probably need to hire. But I also like the perspective of, start small, augment in a more temporary way, experiment, see what works before just hiring a net new person, and maybe that person needs to get cut after, a few months because you haven't proven that out. Like, that's just a harsh reality. Cool. All the way over there. So for Loris, is your supply chain end-to-end sustainable, and how much of your budget goes towards marketing sustainability and maybe showcasing your supply chain?
So we wish we had 100% end-to-end sustainability. Supply chain is impossible. I said before, the only product that doesn't have carbon footprint is one that's ever made. So we're trying to offset through other initiatives, like bringing water to island population that don't have water, planting tree, do many other things to offset some of the things that we cannot cut out of our production and our supply chain, such as, we have to move powder around, we have to ship, we produce offshore, we need to bring things in. And so as much as we're trying to use work with certain shipper, certain company, we don't ship anything by air, we ship everything by train around the country, to avoid, to really minimize there is still a carbon footprint. So the only thing you could do is try to get better and talk and find new solution. It takes time and effort. In terms of budget, it's 100%. In everything that we do, we always include our B Corp certification. We always talk about sustainability. We always talk about initiative. We always talk about innovation that we do in product to make them, recyclable, not to come from recycled material. It's in everything we do. It's in our DNA.
The mission is threaded throughout everything.
Yeah. You have right now to really pay attention because there is a lot of greenwashing. So you have to be mindful of that too. Which word we are using, how you're using certain word. Because you don't want to say we are 100% sustainable. We are not. We cannot be. We should not make anything to be 100% sustainable. All right? So.
Thank you all for the questions. I just want to respect the Shopify team. They have to get out of here at 8. So just to wrap up, maybe you can catch one of these 3 on their way out and you can ask your question. Two things I want to leave you with. If you go to darkroomagency.com/resources, this video will be up there, and the previous office hours events are recorded and up there. We also do a bunch of other events that are recorded. A lot of amazing keynotes from people in the city and across the country marketing. Also, my email is jackson@darkroomagency.com. If you want to ask one of these 3 a question, if you want to ask me a question, email me, very casual over email. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everybody, but thank you all for coming out. Thank you for being so engaged. Really appreciate it. But we're going to be doing more of these in the future. Thanks, guys.